All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Spilling Ink. We are the talk show that takes you behind the book to meet the authors and professionals in the publishing industry. And of course, before we get started, we have to give a shout out to Creative Edge, who is our sponsor for the show. They provide us with the ability to stream to both Facebook and YouTube when we do our shows every Saturday. So thank you to Creative Edge. Creative Edge is, let's see, hold on. I lost my screen. Sorry. Creative Edge is your brand, your future, and they are the advocates for collaboration and believers in partnership in the ever-changing literary industry. At the end of the show, check the notes below and you'll have a link to Creative Edge if you're looking for marketing for your book. So, hey Jane, it's just me and you today hosting.
Hello. How you doing? It's just us flying solo.
That's okay. Maybe Jason's kind of hiding in the comment section. We'll see.
Possibly.
So everybody's surviving our, what is this, third or fourth week of quarantine now?
I don't know. I've been here since May 4th. so we had somebody come in and do carpets. I don't think I've left the house out, like twice since then. So yes.
Yeah, doing okay. Doing okay.
Yeah. Losing track of space and time, but the seasons, it's here. Spring is here, so it's comforting to see the buds, bloom. Everything coming up and changing outside, at least, instead of the same repeat, like we were talking about Groundhog Day inside. Outside is changing, at least.
Yeah, that's true.
Weather's been pretty nice. It's been kind of rainy on. Well, you guys are both on the West Coast,
right?
We get a lot more rain than normal, which is refreshing.
Yeah.
We had snow yesterday.
No more snow.
Welcome to the Northeast. It was, 60 degrees a couple days ago. Then we had snow. Now it's kind of cold, but
yeah.
Is that saying from New England? If you don't like the weather, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Exactly.
We're a mile high here in Arizona. We're not down in the valley, down in Phoenix. We're up in Prescott, so we're a mile high. So we had snow called for earlier this week, and it did spit a little bit, but Flagstaff is about 2,000 feet higher than us, and they get the full hit of everything. So we just got rain, which was wonderful. We'll take the rain. No more snow. We've had enough this year.
Amen for that. I love it when it rains, but living in the desert, we rarely see it. So it's like everyone goes to the window and goes, "Oh my God, what is this water falling from the sky?"
Oh, rain. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we should probably do some introductions. Bruce, you've been on our show a couple of times, so we're going to let Anne do her introduction first. How's that sound?
Yeah, sure.
Tell us more about you and what you write.
Okay. Anne Charles. I write a mixture of mystery with paranormal, adventure, humor, usually a little romance. So it's a mixed genre mess, what comes out. But it's mostly, most of them are mystery based. It's just a lot of stuff thrown in. So I'm not hardcore criminal stuff, not really Nancy Drew, not cozies at all. More of, there's an edge to it. I have some language, and my mom calls them spicy when she tells people in church about them. So, and I say, maybe not at church. Maybe we just talk about it outside. So spicy, just, having a fun time. Blue collar, a lot of it. The crimes are usually, the paranormal is crazy stuff, and then there's, I have 5 different ongoing series that I'm working on. So it keeps me hopping in the different, whatever I'm working on. And each of them are a little bit different, but then I try to, for the most of it, 4 of them are crossover. So the characters move, within all the different series. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I write and what keeps me at the computer every day.
Now, do you have like a regular writing schedule where you try and get a certain number of words in or a certain number of pages in a day?
Yes and no. I mean, right now I'm trying to get the 11th book in my Deadwood mystery series finished. And I've been pushing hard since February. And so, for a while there, it was 2,000 words a day. The last 2 weeks have been closer to 3,000 words a day, which gets kind of grueling for me. I'm not one of those authors that will say, oh, I can just write tons of words all the time. That's not me. So 3,000 words a day is pretty heavy hitting for me because I have a family and life going on too here. So right now with the lockdown, you know, just wake up, roll out of bed, eventually get to the computer, and then write and stop about midnight. Everybody's quiet again around me, and I go, oh, it's been, you know, that 12 hours now. Time to get to bed again and start all over again. So in the midst of writing a book, I'll have a heavier schedule. When I'm not, maybe 1,000 words to 15 a day is 1,500 a day, and that's all I want to do, because I want to breathe. And then, you know, you guys know marketing takes up tons of time, so I need to put a lot of time towards marketing when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I like the 1,000 word a day goal, and I haven't been following it. But that's usually what I kind of aim for.
Right.
If I get more, great. If I don't, 1,000 words isn't that hard to write. It doesn't take that long to write.
Right.
It's two 20-minute sprints, really.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at it that way.
Right.
Yeah, and doing the sprints has been helpful, because you know, like you said, with the quarantine and with people at home, and it's hard some days to actually find the time to sit down and hear yourself think, let alone write the words. And doing those just dedicated sprints just kind of kicks you in the pants and makes you do it, makes you sit down and find the time. So I really enjoy doing the sprints.
Those are not, blocking out the headlines, blocking out the news, try to block out everything and just push forth. Fiction's not even as crazy as real life now, it seems like. So the real stuff is out there making us look bad.
Yeah, dystopian and post-apocalyptic have all moved to current events now.
Yeah,
exactly. Yes. And Joe asked, are we in the same room? No, we just like the same color for our kitchens.
Yeah, we like red kitchens. It's awesome.
50% of authors appreciate red for their background colors. There we go. We got like the dark and the light going on.
I know.
All right. Well, speaking of dark, then, Bruce, go ahead and reintroduce yourself to us. I know you've been on before, but some of the audience members may not know you.
Okay. Well, I write. Well, currently I'm writing paranormal nonfiction, kind of memoirs. I've just finished my trilogy. The third one just came out, Timeless Trinity. So that's the 89 different paranormal stories that have happened to me, ranging everything from ghosts, near-death experience, telepathy, telekinesis, mediumship, and even alien contact. So a little bit of everything. And this is a departure for me, because I'm a history professor by day, I guess, and a paranormal professor by night. So I guess you can put it that way. So yeah, in 2016, I started writing these paranormal memoirs. And most of what I've written is nonfiction, history and political science, and, you know, more standard topics. Although I did write one novel for middle grade students, so which was a real challenge. And I've written plays that have been produced and stuff. So I've done a little bit of that. Anyway, that's just kind of an introduction to me as a writer. So yeah, it was hard to make that decision, because I didn't know how it would be accepted, because I'm not writing fiction, I'm writing nonfiction. So you're kind of hanging yourself out there and see what's going to happen. And actually, it's been a good experience. So
that was going to be my next question, is how's the reception been?
Yeah, for the most part, very good. You know, you get your internet trolls here and there who question certain things, but every once in a while I'll get like one person, kind of scary and ominous. They were quoting Leviticus to me, and I thought, what does this mean? Am I going to be stoned now? I mean, you know, are they going to? I don't know what they were getting at, but I think it has something to do with mediumship. You know, I think that's in Leviticus. But anyway, so but it's all good stuff, mostly good. And the book seemed to sell okay. And I get acceptance from the college where I teach, because I teach a paranormal course too. I teach history. Well, right now we're teaching everything online, but I teach a paranormal course in the evening for the community. And we always have at least 24 students in that class. So yeah, it's been well received, actually. So all my fears were not really founded, as it turned out.
everybody's kind of interested in the supernatural anyway. So
Yeah.
it's we all,
people are.
wonder and have had things happen in our lives, or
Mhm.
and instances that seem to be way too coincidental to be
Yeah,
natural.
exactly. The supernatural is natural and the paranormal is normal to me.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I took 3 classes when I lived up in Washington, paranormal at the community college at night. Getting to go to is one of the most haunted houses in Washington, the state of Washington. Multiple times we went there and did different, with all the different equipment. It was so fun. We had such a good time, and I did that because in one of the series I read, the Deadwood Mystery series, I'm meeting all this paranormal and supernatural stuff. And so I really wanted to get in there with a paranormal investigator and a team and really get the feel of it more and experience it firsthand, and was one of my favorite things, that I've ever gotten to do through college courses. So I love it. And I wanted to ask you, what history, what do you specialize in, or what time period?
Modern U.S. history, and if you really focus it down, the Cold War, Vietnam War. So what they call diplomatic history, but it's really the history of America's wars.
Okay.
So that's kind of my specialty. And I was in the Army, and so I, kind of naturally, that's what I gravitated towards. And but I also written books about women's leadership. And I was inspired after my mom died in 1990. Everything I write, I'm compelled to write it. I don't really choose it. It chooses me. And then I have to carry out the mission, and then something else comes up,
Right.
So that's what I do. And but yeah, modern U.S. history. That I teach early American history too. But my specialty is modern American history.
Interesting. That's what my daughter's doing, the Cold War right now. 7th grade level, not quite what you're doing, but just getting into all that post.
Well, actually, some of the best history books are written for middle grade and younger children. Actually, they get right to the point.
Right.
And they're not trying to impress their academic colleagues. They just get right to it without too much pomp and circumstance. Which I really like.
Right.
Yeah.
I know there's a kid in her grade. He's wonderful. But when I met him first, when he was in 2nd grade, I was working in the school library, volunteering, just shelving books and helping out. And he's a wonderful kid. And he would come up to me, and remember 2nd grade, and he was so into big machines and airplanes and wars. And he finally came up. It was toward the end of the school year, and he said, "Can you get me a book on the Cold War?" And I said, "You do know that's not a war fought out in the blizzard, right?" And he goes, "What?"
They're so literal with that age. I loved
it. And he's really good friends with my daughter still, 5-6 years later. So, and I still tell him, "You do know about the Cold War now." And he's like, "I know." But I just love that.
That's funny.
He wanted it to be like big machines for the snow, but it wasn't. And he was so let down by the Cold War.
I imagine, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Looks like we got a comment from one of our viewers asking the difference between paranormal and supernatural.
Yeah, it's always a good question. In my mind, when I think of the paranormal, I think of less, more like telepathy, telekinesis, mediumship, these things that actually have been tested in laboratories and stuff that they've actually proven exist. And when I think of the supernatural, I think of more the practice of different types of, I'm going to say more like the occult. I guess that's how I would picture it. I'm not adverse to the name. I use both, but that's more where it leans towards in my mind, the supernatural. Whereas the paranormal is more of the if I could say scientific, I guess. But
yeah, I was going to say paranormal is more the scientific versus,
I think so. Because they call them parapsychologists. So,
right.
People that study the paranormal. So.
Yeah.
Hold on, Rebecca just said supernatural has gods and deities.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
religious belief kind of stuff. So would you say, you've got ghosts versus magic? Those would be a separating line between paranormal and supernatural.
Yeah, I try not to draw too hard and fast lines, because really it all comes down to consciousness. And if you talk to Dean Radin, who's like the #1 paranormal researcher in America, he says that it's really all about attention and intention. Attention to something, and then the intention of making something happen. So whether it's telepathy, like if you want to communicate with somebody without speaking, if you have the attention to it, and you have what I call focused calm, and then you have the intention of making that connection, then you have a good chance of it happening. Or like remote viewing, which is also called clairvoyance, that type of thing.
Right.
Now, where does astral projection fit into that?
Astral projection is, I would think that's traveling through time and space through consciousness. And you can go anywhere in the universe, that's the whole idea. But you have to be in that meditative state, and then be able to travel to different places. People do that when they do remote viewing. Some of the remote viewers actually travel to the location and look at it from above, as if they're flying above it or hovering above it. So at least that's my view of it. When I do meditation and when I do mediumship, I don't really leave my body. I'm just still in my body, but I have a connection. So I don't do a lot of astral traveling. And I don't know if I have a passport for that type of passport.
You have to self-quarantine when you go too,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think self-quarantining would have to work if you're doing out of body. I mean,
True. That's true.
You would think so, yeah. You would think it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. Interesting.
Now, I've got to ask about mediumship. So is that where you're acting as a conduit to speak to, I guess, to other dimensions or other...
you're talking to dead people, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking to dead people. Let's just say what it is. And they don't mind, actually. What interesting thing about the dead is that they're very honest. Unlike us, and I'm not saying us, the four of us, but a lot of people, you have a persona, a mask that we wear. The dead don't have them. They don't care. They're already, they've been there, done that. They're in the spirit world, and you get some very direct, interesting responses from them.
So what's the most interesting response you've gotten?
Their insights are very good, and they're very direct. They don't pull any punches. They will tell you exactly what they're thinking, and they don't present themselves to be anything other than what they are, which is pure spirit in the spirit world. And their view on things, I think I listen to them very carefully. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I do listen to them. And some of them, for instance, I was asked by a lady to contact her father, which I was able to, and they also have to want to talk to you. It's not like a medium can grab somebody and say, you must talk to me. So they have to be willing. And most of them are, actually a lot of them are, but sometimes they'll tell you things that maybe you have to think, should I really say that to that living person? Because maybe that's going to hurt them, because the whole idea is to help people. They're grieving, and they want a connection. They want proof of life after life, as I call it. And you want to give them that, but sometimes you get information that seems very negative, and you have to be very careful. So it's not it's not easy, for one thing, but it's also, there's a lot of ethics involved with it too, that I never thought about that before. I thought, you just talk to dead people and that's it. But you hear stuff that maybe you shouldn't necessarily share. And then a lot of people ask you to do it, and you give them information, and then they they're expecting 100% accurate information. You got the person's name and their last name and their profession, but you didn't get their middle name correct. So it's all hogwash, it's all, well, can you understand, the fact that you're talking to a dead person, and if you don't get it 100% correct, you're talking to a dead person. That's the thing, accept it as that. So it's not that I get upset with people. It's just that people expect it to be like some kind of Harry Potter stuff, you know.
You just pick up the phone and call them.
Which it isn't. So it's but it's amazing that it even how it works. I don't really know. I don't think anybody knows how it works. But I've had this, you know, been doing this, well, seriously, with some kind of management of it the last 4 years. But my whole life, you know, dead people have spoken to me, but I didn't know how to control it or manage it or anything.
That's gonna be scary when that first happens to you as a child.
Yeah, at an open casket funeral, it was pretty good.
Oh.
Yeah, so you learn pretty quick to, you try to, the first thing I learned was how to turn it off. That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you can't go to parties. You know, I don't like parties anyway, but, you know, because you're just picking up on everything. And you got to be able to turn it off and enjoy yourself. Because otherwise, you're not reading minds, but nobody really reads a mind. They read the intention. It comes down to attention and intention, right? So you can read people's intentions, which is kind of scary sometimes. If you're in a room full of people, you don't want to know all this stuff. You just want to go in there, have a good time, and go home. You don't want to know their, you know, whatever their intentions are, unless it's a life and death situation. That would be different. In a social setting.
Right. There was a meme or a thing going around Facebook not too long ago that people were kind of freaking out about how some people do have that inner monologue and some people don't have an inner monologue. And I can just imagine, you know, if you're trying to read other people's thoughts or whatever, and you run into somebody who doesn't have the inner monologue, would you just get images? Or...
Sometimes they're images, sometimes they're words, sometimes it's you'll actually see, like I will see handwriting, like, and I don't, in like usually it's like cursive, and I don't write cursive. I'm a block. I never learned how to do cursive, so I know it's not me. So it's this kind of script, and so there's different ways. Sometimes images, you know. I did a reading for a lady. It was impromptu. It was at a book signing, and she said, you can do a reading for me. And I don't really, you know, I'm not set up to do it. And she wanted, it was a dead husband thing, you know, so it was very important to her. And what I got was a pipe, an image of a pipe and the color green. And I told her, and she said, oh my God, my husband smoked a pipe. And I told him to stop. And he did stop because he loved me so much. And my favorite color is green. And okay, well, I picked up on some, you know, it could be coincidence, but I think not. But I didn't hear any words from this guy. Just those images were thrown my way. So it depends on the spirit, on the person. Maybe a really wordy person, you'll hear words and see writing and stuff. We'll find out what happens when I pass away, what other people pick up from me. We'll see what happens. Probably way too many words, probably.
It's funny.
Will you just shut up? Please, just get him to stop. Yeah.
You're quiet, the voices, Richard. I thought that was fascinating, though, when people were talking about not having an inner monologue, because if you don't have it, that's normal for you. But for those who do think in an inner monologue, you can't imagine what it would be like to not have that.
Right.
Well, I know when my daughter had a writing assignment when she was in school, it was how to describe a rainbow. I said, well, just close your eyes and see it, because I can do that. It's very easy for me. And both she and my husband looked at me like, what are you talking about? You know, because they don't, my husband who, you know, has an architectural background can actually see things almost in that same way. But the idea of seeing and being able to write what you see from, you know, internally, they just didn't get that. And I'm like, I thought everybody was like me. Nope. My son is exactly like me. You know, my son's got the Alan McBeal moments. But yeah, it's very different to find out or to have that happen and go, oh, nobody, you know, everybody else doesn't have this monologue or doesn't see pictures when they can close their eyes and call on something from maybe past or just something they've seen on television. They can't do that.
Now, from a writing perspective, we always use the excuse we can't hear our characters or we can't, you know, visualize the scene. So when you're writing, are you visualizing it? Or are you hearing everything? Are you seeing the words appear?
Not seeing the words, I'm seeing the scene. I'm a very visual person, and I mean, I went to school for television production, so all of that visual stimulation I can see. And in the beginning, my writing was all visual. There wasn't all the underlying stuff because that's what I was seeing and writing. So yes, and
I'm the opposite. I hear everything, which is why I can't write if it's too noisy. So I have to actually sit and hear the characters speak. And my first drafts are they're almost like screenplays because they are almost running dialogue with very, very little stage direction. And then the second draft is where I can come back in and I can start to concentrate and visualize the scene around them. And
I can write in any environment except for right now. But I could be sitting there with the TV on, the kids arguing, and not hear a thing because I'll be in the story. It's like I can actually physically step out of my body into the story and my hands go.
The red background, because I'm like you. It's instead of reading a lot of books, if I need to kind of get some creative juices flowing, I pick movies because visual. And then I think about how would I take that movie and put it into words? How will I describe that scene? How would I do that? But it's much more. I do love books, but and I don't have as much time to read a bunch of books anymore because of the writing. So I find myself going to movies that I watch over and over and think, okay, what's going on? Why am I hooked enough to keep watching this thing repeatedly and then try to break it down? But like you, it's a visual thing. So the Red Kitchen and right.
But when I read, I step into it's almost like I physically step into the book and I can see it and feel it and taste it. And it's just, I guess, bizarre. And that's why I can shut the entire world down when I'm doing this stuff. When I'm in a writing zone, I mean, I've had my child right by my chair going, "Mom, Mom, Mom, Mom." And finally my husband goes, "Jane," really loud. I'm like, I'm startled, and I'm like, oh, people are here.
Do any of you have that thing where you can hear colors, or you can see sound? I forgot what there's an official name for it, but what they found, research has shown that a lot of people who can do remote viewing have that condition where they can, or that skill or whatever, where you can, the cross senses, you can hear, you can see sound, and you can hear colors. It's kind of an interesting thing. I think I might have a little bit of that, but not as strong as some of these people because I'm not really a good remote viewer, but the people who are, most of them have that.
I mean, I can close my eyes if I'm listening to music and see the music in colors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I used to do in college when I used to get migraines. I just close myself in the room, turn up the radio really loud on Creedence Clearwater Revival because it had a consistent bass beat, and just close my eyes, and that would alleviate the headache, and it would put me to sleep. My roommates could never understand how I could sleep with something just so loud and going like this.
Right.
But I don't know, I have had dreams of people. When I'm under wicked high stress, I've had dreams of stuff in the future. So I believe in that, Yeah.
That's scary. That is so scary.
It's always inconsequential situations. Like, it's very benign situations. So it's when I'm under high stress, it's like my mind opens up and says, look, there is something for you to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. In that sense, I could see that being okay. But if it's like warnings of what's going to come, those are the scariest, because then you've got that deja vu that hits you and you're like, oh my God, I've done this before. I know how this is going to end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've only written about a real person once. Never again.
There's proof of the paranormal right there. Precognition. Deja vu.
Yeah.
And most people have that. Most people do have that.
Yeah, but I don't think they recognize it, or they don't remember their dreams. That's
Right.
a big thing, because I remember almost every one of my dreams, and I know the difference between, a wacko Jane dream and one of these dreams.
Right. A
You know,
precognitive dream.
there's
Yeah.
the clarity versus the fogginess of a
Mhm.
regular dream. So.
The only dreams I ever remember are the nightmares, and usually after trying to translate them, it has to do with a lot of mental stress, trying to warn me to stop whatever it is I'm doing. But it's never like a direct, this is going to happen. It's usually like key things or clues that once I remember the dream, I can figure it out.
That's interesting.
And then there was quiet.
Yeah.
Richard asked us a question up here just a few seconds ago. Let me get
Yes,
back to it. Hold on, where'd it go? All right. He says, how do each of you convert the inner monologue to your book? I'm not quite sure what we mean by that question. Is he talking about how you hear the character voices and put that on paper, or are you talking about reading it and visualizing it? Let's see if he comments back. Usually the comments are a few minutes behind.
Well, I would say that I hear the character is speaking to me, and then I write down what they say. I always say at a certain point the characters take over, and then I just let it go. I mean, I obviously have to edit or format or whatever, but they do start to take over. So I do hear, and I hear their accents, and I hear their personality. The personalities come through, and it's always fascinating to me getting to know these characters.
Yeah, when I finished one of the series, they wouldn't shut up, and I had to do more.
Yeah,
because they just wouldn't go away.
That's right.
That makes writing the series so much easier when your characters want you to keep going. It's when they don't talk to you that you have problems.
It's when like, yeah, I'm on vacation. See you later. It's like, where do I need to go?
See, so writing's a form of mediumship, then, I guess.
Yeah.
About it.
Yes.
You gotta learn how to turn it off too, not just turn it on.
Yeah, well, so what happens when you run into a situation where your characters want to do something and you're hearing them, but you don't want them to do that because the story demands the plot goes a different way?
Plot. Just do it, right?
Yeah. Age-old question. Character plot.
Yeah, they have surprised me before, even on paper. When I just let them go, they do surprise the shit out of me. So,
all right, he clarified his question here. He's talking about hearing the dialogue and writing it down, but are you writing around it to develop your characters? So I guess adding the depth. When you hear the characters speak, you're only hearing what they're saying. You still have to add the other layers to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The between the lines. Yeah. You have to understand their intention and then build that in, because they might not be as honest as you want them to be. So then you have to understand that as the channeler of your character's dialogue.
It's a little bit like being a journalist almost. You're writing down as much as you're getting from them and then filling in the gaps.
Yeah. I think that's part of it. Yeah.
Well, it comes in, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times, sometimes it all comes out right on the, those beautiful moments when it all comes, the dialogue, the narrative, everything you want, the descriptive parts, and you're painting the scene. And then there's most days when, okay, first let's get the dialogue of it down. Then let's go back and start showing body language, what's going on really. And then we better start working on where they're actually at for this scene. And let's paint that in too. So sometimes I think of it more as, a painting where you go in or coloring in the lines, first I do the lines and then I work on coloring in the lines till I feel like finally there. And then I always say, why can't it just come out good like that other time? Every time. Why do I have to work at this some days? But that's, I'm sure all the life going on around us makes a difference in that too.
Yeah, stepping into the writing zone is so wonderful. But when you have to layer like like you're saying, it does feel like it's pulling teeth. You know,
Yeah.
And then you have to add in the senses and the scenery and the, all of this stuff. And it's like, why? You're right. It's like, come on, snap. Get it all out.
That's normal for me though, because that's exactly how my first drafts look. It's just I hear the characters and I write down everything and then go back and go, okay, now what were they doing while they were speaking? And then I have to put all the pieces over the top of that. It never comes out just as a beautiful picture on that first, at least first, sometimes second draft.
That's the no, I agree with that. And it's the cool thing about writing for theater, a theater play, is that what you bring to the rehearsal room is just the beginning, and then the actors take over, and then you rewrite and revise, and then the lighting director and the director and the stage manager and the scene. I mean, they all. It's like you're building. It's so communal. You're building the story all together, and I loved it. I loved that sense of community. That I went to every single rehearsal, even the tech rehearsals where they were just talking about lighting. It was explained to me that lighting is kind of like painting, like you were using the painting analogy. You're painting with light to set moods and so forth. And I think it made me a better writer in another sense, because here it was in theater, it's all broken down to these people that do these specialties. I'm just providing words in the story, but they're doing everything else. And yeah, they need my input every once in a while. Like they'll do something and that's not right. That's not going to work. But for the most part, I just sit back and look and marvel at what happens.
Right.
So
now, how many of you, as you're doing your revisions, actually act out some of your scenes?
Well, I talk to myself, and read it out loud. But I mean, full on act out. No. I'm a horrible actor. So
I've done a couple with my son and Jaquito moves.
oh.
Yeah,
That's what you're talking. You're talking the fight scenes.
That's actually how I tend to write a lot of my fight scenes. Is I will get out some of my play weapons and work with them and see how moves work and what works and what doesn't work, and whether it makes sense to do something, or if I can get some feedback if somebody's sparring with me, that's even better. But usually it's just me dancing around my room with my sword or something.
Which is awesome.
It immerses you in the scene, because then you're taking over that character and you're trying to figure out exactly what it is they're doing.
Right.
I use the read aloud function on Word. So I'll capture a paragraph or a page or whatever, and then I'll go up to I think it's under I forgot what it's under in Word, but anyway, they'll read it aloud to you, and that really helps me, because I can only read it so many times, on the page, and then I don't see what I want to see.
Right.
I don't always hear what I want to hear. So then I let the read aloud function read it, and I catch a lot of stuff that way.
Yeah, it's interesting how your brain knows what you meant to say, how you meant to say it, but it doesn't always translate to the page. And then if you have somebody else read it, or you have that read aloud feature, you're like, oh, no. It's not how that was supposed to work.
Put Joe's question back up there.
Yep. I got to find it again. Sorry, it scrolled up off the screen.
Yeah. How often on edits?
It's a funny question.
Probably always. It's just the flow of the words. And the faster you're writing, the more you have to go back and clarify and edit it. It's not complete shit, but it's the faster moving pieces of the story that you have to step back and say, okay, now I need to build on this. Yes, I was in the zone, but now I need to build on it. So it's just part of the process, as you were asking later.
I once wrote a college paper. This was years ago, but I drank. I thought, let's see how we do, when I'm a little bit tipsy. So I got drunk and I wrote a lot. And I went back the next day, and that really was total crap. Pretty bad. I thought, you're never going to be Hemingway. So that's a good thing. It was I can do this sober. Good.
Yeah.
No, I've done tipsy writing, and those are usually the the more comedic scenes.
You think they're so good, and then you look at them in the next day, and you're like, "No, that was bad."
Who wrote this
It's more of a
garbage?
serious scene, not a laughable scene. Come on.
I think it is important to be able to write crap sometimes,
Yes.
just so you can get it out there and expose it, and
Yeah.
then deal with it and realize, wow, that doesn't work. So it's not fun, but it does happen, and it's, you can catch it yourself. If you have a reader or somebody that's helping you, or like when you're writing a theater play and the director says that's crap, that doesn't work, then you have to, obviously do something with it. But I think maybe writing crap is not such a bad thing sometimes.
No, I have to agree with you there. I call it word spewing. And a lot of times it goes along with sprinting, and it's an exercise in just shutting off the self-editor and getting an idea on the page in whatever form it comes, because you're going to end up having to revise it later either way. So just get it out and on the paper.
Yeah, finish the book, finish it, go back and and I know we've said that before. I self-edit a little bit along the way, but I've learned, excuse me, I've learned not to do that because I need to get the whole story out.
Right. Get it on
and then the layering
right
afterwards.
Well, there's the famous story of the historian, and now I can't remember his name, who was doing research to write the ultimate Pearl Harbor history.
Yeah.
And he kept collecting information and researching and collecting, but he didn't want to start writing until he had collected more information. And then the guy died.
Yeah.
So he never wrote it.
So
Yeah, just get it done. And a lot of times for new authors, that becomes a necessary thing to tell them, because they'll get stuck on chapter 2 or 3, and it's just not perfect, and it stops them from ever finishing the book, even though they might have plotted it out already. They never get past that chapter because it's not perfect yet.
Right.
It's never going to be perfect on the first go around. Allow yourself to write bad and at least get the story out there. Then
get the bones down. You can build from there. But if you never get the bones down, you'll be stuck in this bad pattern of, is this word the right word?
You can't edit what's not on the page.
Right.
How many of you have a first manuscript that's total crap, but you finished it, and it's just you hit the end? I mean, me too. Yeah. And I keep it just to go back and remember, but I wrote to the end, so that was something. That was the start, and I think that's important. So you can do it.
It really is, whether or not you end up publishing it. What is it? Standard novel length is about 60 to 80,000 words. That's a lot of words.
Yeah.
Pat yourself on the back if you get that far.
Right. Absolutely.
That's an accomplishment in and of itself. It really is. I mean, I've written 10 plays and only 2 have been produced, but I still like the other 8. I think they're maybe producible, but maybe not. But I like to look at them every once in a while and say, oh yeah, I finished that.
Exactly.
I like those I did it moments. Motivation to keep going. You look back and go, I did it once, I can do it again.
Yep. I counted the books that I have out. I have 50 now.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. And I have 40 covers that I have to write to now.
Oh wow.
You have a cover problem, Jane.
Cover hard. Admittedly. I haven't done any this year.
But at least you have motivation, or inspiration for things to write, because the cover, it's, what is it? A picture's worth that I can talk. Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Now I just have to pick which is next. That's the problem. It's like, I want to finish this and then pick what's next, but I don't necessarily have the same passion on the current that I do for that. So I have to sort of channel that, which is interesting to do sometimes.
Now that brings up an interesting question. When you're writing a book that you're passionate about, it's a lot easier to write. But let's say you're writing a book that you have to write. Whether you're under contract, or whether it's a series that you really need to finish and you're maybe not as excited about it as you were in the first few books, or maybe it's something for a job, like papers that need to be turned in, reports or whatever.
Right.
How do you motivate yourself to get through and slog through the writing that's just you're not feeling?
Well, it's getting to the end. That's important. And then taking a step back and then going back in after you've had a little distance to go, okay, and rereading it and getting excited about the story again. That's the beginning. That's the beginning part of editing. By the end of editing, you hate everything.
Yes.
And that's when you know it's done.
Tired of it. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I switch between the different series just to keep it fresh so that I don't get so, oh, another story, and it bogs you down. I like to switch it up and keep jumping to a different series now. Let's go back over here and read and catch up and see where these characters are going, just to keep that from happening. I think
doing series.
I
love doing series.
Yeah, I can't say goodbye to characters, so I like to keep going. And, as long as the conflict's there, then that works, and, you can keep it going. But yeah, when you have to, my worry is always if you get tired and you're feeling that, slog, I have to finish that. It's gonna, maybe not for you guys, but it's gonna show on the page for me. It's gonna be, it's gonna come out. It's not gonna have the excitement. It's gonna be boring, and it's just, and they'll say, oh, Anne must have had a deadline. She had to get this done. You see that in reviews time and again. Reviews go, well, you must have phoned that ending in because the deadline came up. And so I don't want to ever, if I can help it, have that. But, if it's your head's not in it and your heart's not in it, I don't know how you get past that. I haven't had to deal with that too much yet. So fingers crossed.
As indie authors, I don't know if you guys have felt the pressure or not, but a lot of people are producing books so fast now that if you wait too long and you're a series author, you tend to, out of sight, out of mind, and you're kind of forgotten by the time if you wait a year, which is traditionally how long it takes for the next book to come out, at least in the traditional marketplace. That was acceptable. If you wait a year now, they've, done 3 or 4 different series.
Right.
And they've forgotten about your book, and they don't have that same excitement, which makes the marketing a lot harder.
Right.
And getting that next book out and getting the excitement kicked back up again. So I don't know if you guys have felt the pressure, but I know as a series writer, and Jane, you and I did it with the last one, we put them out so fast so that there was no time. There was like 30 days between each book.
Wow.
So that we could get it done.
We did 3 books in 6 months.
Wow.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. So, and I usually write I try to do 4 a year. Sometimes I do more. But I've been slowing down because I'm writing, I have this one thing that I'm doing, fairy tale retellings. It's not a series. So I have to relearn the characters all again, and then get into it. And it's standalones. And that is difficult. Because as I said, I love series. I love getting to know my characters and continuing.
Yeah.
Because all of my series are all interwoven.
Mm-hmm.
So they all sort of cross over. And
see, now that's smart because you can explore side characters a little more fully, and they're part of the world, which is kind of fun.
Until I kill them all.
We do have a murdering problem. There is that.
They don't always stay dead.
Yeah.
There we go. Paranormal, supernatural.
Yep.
Yeah.
I write supernatural suspense. That's my my strong point. So yeah.
I kind of look at it, compare it to like exercising. I never want to do it, but once I start, I feel good about it. And then I'm glad I did it afterwards, but it's like I gotta drag myself to do it. I never say, man, I just really want to go on a run right now, for me now it's a jog or whatever. But anyway, okay, I'll do it. And then I feel good. So, so just pushing yourself to do it. And, the only serious kind of thing I've done is the comic book actually that I just published last year, which was 37 years in the making. There's something about never giving up. If you have an idea, stick with it. So 37 years. I started as a comic strip when I was in engineering school, and then I left it for 37 years, and I came back to it. But I finally published it as a comic book, and then now I'm writing the subsequent, issues of the comic book. So that's the only series I've ever done, fiction anyway.
Right.
So the Snark, you see him behind there somewhere behind me.
Yep, right behind you.
Yep.
Snark, yeah. So, but I love it. I see what you're talking about. I just keep wanting it to go on and on and on. And the way I'm doing this comic book, I work with a really good artist, which is nice. And you're talking about covers, you're talking about art. I love art, and I'm a frustrated comic book artist myself. So I do sketches and I write the story out and I send it to the artist, and then he does a great job with it. And so we're able to produce it, but I want it to keep going. So we'll see what happens.
They become your friends, and you have their lives embedded in your head. And
Yeah.
I always say, if I ever get Alzheimer's, I won't know who the hell I am. They have all these lives.
I think we'll have a lot of friends, Jane.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Known for years, and they'll be all around us, just keeping us entertained with their lives.
True.
That would be a great way to go into dementia, is just to go into your book worlds permanently.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Not a bad way to go.
Like, are we actually gods making these horrible things to these people? That's the other thought that comes to my head at times. It's like, oh, if I'm really doing this to somebody, that's awful. Horrible, scary.
And I just think it's the journalist approach. I'm pulling from another person's life.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I joke about looking through the keyhole, peeking through and watching this whole thing go on, and then reporting back what's happening through the keyhole. But
kind of neat.
Yeah.
It sometimes does feel like almost it's not coming from you. You're getting the information, the scenes from somewhere else, wherever that could be. And when you're writing, especially when you get that furious writing session where you're just tearing through the pages and the scenes are playing out, it's I don't know. I can't describe it. It doesn't feel like it's coming from within you. It's somewhere else, and you're just picking up on it like a radio tuner.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the parapsychologists would call that you're picking up on the signal line of a greater consciousness. So,
that's interesting.
some people have called it the muse, right? Same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And who knows what it actually is? I don't think anybody knows, but we've all, if you're a writer, you've tapped into that. So
Right. Opening
So-
up more. Like with the paranormal, you have your skeptics, then you have your, that are open to it, I think. So learning how to open that up and, soak up and being able to share it, back. That's a whole different thing. I think you can soak it up, but you got to learn how to give it back, or put it out for people to understand.
yeah.
So, a question for all of you. If you had a chance to write about something completely different than your normal genre, what would you want to write about?
That is so weird, because I've been thinking that for the last 2 weeks. That question, it's like you're reading my mind. I really have. It came up and I'm letting it go. What would I write?
Yeah.
That's interesting that you're asking this. See, now I feel deja vu and all the paranormal stuff coming in.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know I guess it would be a screenplay, but it could be a book too, a romantic comedy. That just seems very different than what I've written about, so it'd be interesting.
I
A
kind
rom-com.
I like sometimes good ones. Historical romances. I mean, back, when back, Scottish, all that. And what intimidates me about that is the amount of education, learning, research that you have to do, because I've seen the reviews on some of these books, and the readers are often very knowledgeable, and they will call you on your mistakes if you have this wrong sword, wrong kind of bustle. I don't know. And I find it really fun to read a lot of those, but it scares me, the idea of doing it. But I daydream about, wow, I wonder if I could write one of those someday. That's just that's one thing I think would be, maybe it's the challenge that I find interesting. How would I do? How would I research that? Be fun researching.
Yeah.
All that history, right, Bruce? Yeah.
Well, you could research forever, and you're going to make some little mistake. There's just no way to not do it, and people always sharpshoot you. People find out I'm a historian. They say, "Oh, really? Okay, what happened in the year 1238?" I don't know. Some people lived, some people died.
They lived in rock huts.
See, that's when you go and find beta readers who read within the genre that you're trying to write, so that they can help you spot those things.
Yeah,
because they'll be a little bit more naturally tuned to it.
Yeah. What about you? What about you? You guys, Jane?
I was gonna ask Katie first, but
I don't know, because as an indie, I can write whatever I want, and I tend to. I add in the elements that I'm most interested in. So I've got a pen name where I write a little more racier stories, and then under my regular, just I guess I'm urban fantasy across the board. So it's you have the freedom as an indie to write what you want.
Right.
Yeah, I have one book that I want to write, and it is historical fiction, but it's a World War II romance. And I have pictures, I have diary entries and everything from the time. It's about my grandparents.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, I even have the cover for that. But it's out of my wheelhouse because it's based on a true story. So and it's not, I can't make shit up.
Oh, I like what Anita's
I'm really good at. So, that's really funny that you said historical fiction, historical romance. I'm like,
I know. There's I know. It's like we're sisters or something. It out because we have many
same background, same ambition. Yeah. Have you thought about the film director Werner Herzog? He did documentaries, and he got criticized because they say his documentaries are not all factual or whatever. And his counter to that is brilliant. He said, "Well, I deal with not the literal truth, but the ecstatic truth." Ecstatic truth. He says not the accountant's truth, but the ecstatic truth, the truth beyond the truth. So, it's very cleverly, the way he defends himself in these. Right. He really ends it with that. He just doesn't listen to people anymore, especially when he calls it an accountant's truth, which doesn't sound very exciting.
Yeah, I know.
And wasn't it? It was Alfred Hitchcock who said that. What did he say? That drama is really just life with all the boring parts cut out. So. Yeah. Was it drama that he said, or was it suspense? I can't remember. But anyway, I think it was Hitchcock said that. Yeah. But yeah, so ecstatic truth. Just do those historical things. Do them. I think it would be great.
Yeah, Anita agrees with you here. Find a reasonable explanation. That's it.
Yeah.
Come up with a reason why you did it. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I've often thought, what do we truly know? I mean, we know what was written, but what do you know unless if you were in that time, what do we know what was really going on? I mean, because we know what's written about nowadays isn't always the truth.
Right. Right. I just have letters and things like that. And letters, and my grandmother's diary on her side, because she wasn't on the ship with my grandfather. So, it was just a lot of stuff. So I actually have lots of factual stuff.
Oh, wow.
But I just have to get into the, love story.
Right.
Well, I'll give you a dilemma that I had. I wrote a play about my parents in World War II, kind of loosely based on their experience living under Nazi occupation in Norway. And I had an African-American actor that wanted to be in the play. I mean, he wanted to be in the play. Okay, well, how am I going to do this? So then I created a role for him of being a French Foreign Legion soldier that happened to be in Narvik during the time of the German invasion, because the French Foreign Legion actually were there. And I said, well, the French Foreign Legion includes people from Africa, because they had people from their African colonies that were part of their Foreign Legion. So I ran it by a professor of Norwegian history in a university in Norway. And he said, well, there's no documented case of it. And I said, well, there's no document that says that it didn't happen either, right?
True.
So then I created this role for this guy, and he was perfect, and it was great. And, you know,
There you go.
I was able to fit him in. And yeah. And he was very thankful and grateful because he wanted to be in the play. He really
Cool. So
it can be done.
we're almost at, actually we're at time, but I want to hear about Anne and Bruce's latest releases or what's coming up for you guys.
Bruce, you want to go first?
Trinity, Timeless Trinity, available on Amazon. It's the trilogy, completion of the trilogy of paranormal books. 89 in total, 89 paranormal stories ranging from ghosts to aliens. And then my Snark comic book, which is out there. And I'm actually working on Snark #2. So yeah, that's it.
Now, will it take 37 years for Snark 2?
Oh God, I hope not. How old would I be? I'd be so old. Yeah.
Let's not go there.
Not good.
Well, Stan Lee was doing movies pretty, at a pretty old age, still in those movies doing his cameos. You can do your cameo.
Yeah.
So Anne, what about you?
I'm finishing up the 11th book in the Deadwood Mystery series, and that's the one where it's a mix of mystery with paranormal. Interestingly, BookBub throws me into the supernatural category every time. Because, in BookBub, you can either pick paranormal romance or supernatural. So
suspense, yes.
So, supernatural, which it does, based off what Bruce talked about, it does fit in that as well. So finishing that up to get that out at the end of May is the goal, or somewhere in May, have the release of that ebook and as well as then the print. And then my husband and I write a series called the Deadwood Undertaker series that is actually a prequel series to the big Deadwood Mystery series back in Old West Deadwood. So we're working on book 3 right now. He's doing all the hard work on that one, but getting book 3 up and going. And that is also supernatural, occult, mix of stuffs, because it's the same world. It's just, 100+ years prior and what was going on. So that's kind of what's going on here. Just as I said earlier to you guys, through this whole mess, it's been, instead of, I've been able to just bury my head into the story, fortunately, and get words on the page and write, the book will be about 130,000 words, which is typical for my big novels. So just writing through it all, trying not to look too much around at everything or read too many headlines, and keep going forth with the story.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Back to you, Katie. Look that way.
Next release coming out. We working on Jane. Said you have a release coming out soon. So
it's August. It's August at this point. I pushed it to August.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It was supposed to be July, but Grimm's Daughter is coming out. And then and that will have characters from our combined series in it. They'll actually show, a cameo in it.
Fun.
So
I love how you connect all of them so that they are basically all in one giant world.
Yes. We're all friends.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for us tonight. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. It's been a
thank you.
And for all of our audience members out there, thanks for participating in the chat. You guys were really going at it today. It was flying by faster than I could keep track of it.
Thank you for having me on. This was fun. It was great to talk with you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And you guys are welcome back anytime. Please just shoot us an email next time you're available, especially when you've got your book coming out.
Okay.
That way we can get you back on. And for everyone else out in the audience, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next week with another live edition of Spilling Ink. Bye till then.
Bye.